Are you sick and tired of wrestling with a tangled up, kinked hose, dragging it around all summer, destroying everything in its path, and standing out in the hot sun watering each and every plant in the garden? Are you tired of life passing you by and saying no to friends when they ask you to go out and do the things you once enjoyed? Does it pain you greatly day in and day out having to tell the kids that you just can't play right now because you've got watering to do? Maybe in the fall, you guys. Those times, they are a-changin', because in this video I'm going to show you how to install easy drip irrigation that will work in containers, raised beds, or in-ground beds, so you can get back to living again. Coming up. Drip irrigation is one of the best things I've done for the garden. There were so many weeks where I would spend hours and hours just watering everything. And a lot of times I would forget, or I wouldn't have enough time, and inevitably the garden would end up completely off schedule with watering, lack of water, uneven watering, and so that would end up with pests and diseases that I would then have to manage later. So it really took up a lot of time and a lot of energy. I was intimidated by, installing drip. I have done several other things in the past to try to ease my watering schedule, including soaker hoses like this one, which at the beginning of the line would flood everything, and by the end of the line, things were left dry. Plus, they would end up spraying all over the plant leaves. I decided that this was the year to install drip. One of the reasons is because of all the new raised beds that I installed. But I didn't just use it in the raised beds, I also used it in containers and in the ground in the garden beds. And it's not just a huge time saver, it's a money saver as well, because the water goes directly to the roots where it's needed. In fact, in the beginning, I thought it wasn't working because it had been on for 15 minutes, and all I saw was a tiny little penny-sized circle of wetness on top of the soil. But when I dug down, just even an inch or 2 inches, it was completely soaked underneath. So what I thought I would do is just start at the beginning of the line and take you all the way to the end of the line and show you how this was put together. And not to worry, because after all the intimidation and fear I had for putting this in, it really only took about 3 hours of pretty easy work. Let's get started. I have all the materials linked down below to my system and the way it's designed here. But if you just want to try something out and get your feet wet, I've also linked a kit that Drip provides down below as well. Whatever you do, I highly suggest, if you have a lot of watering by hand to do in the summertime, or any time for that matter, you definitely give this a try one way or another. So come on in closer and take a look. So first of all, I've got it hooked right to the hose bib coming out of the garage. And I've got a two-way splitter here so that I could water the rest of the yard or do whatever I need with the hose. And then on this side, I have a 4-station timer. Right now, I'm only using 2 of the stations. Now, if you don't want a timer, if you don't need a timer, this was the most expensive part, pretty much, of the whole setup. So if you don't need that, if you're just going to do it manually and just, set your own timer on your phone or watch or whatever to tell you when to turn it off, then you're going to save a lot of money right there. But I was figuring if I was going for this whole thing, I was going to do it, right where I could go on vacation and not have to worry about all of it. So I'm only using 2 of these 4 stations right now. And there's a backflow. If you don't have the one that's a timer with a backflow preventer, you'll need to get one separately. And that basically is just it's going to keep the water from backing up into the house and the system in there. So that's already in here. The second thing is you need a pressure regulator. And so that's what these 2 things are here. They screw on to the timer, and then the hoses screw on that. And that's basically because the system operates best at around 25 to 30 psi, and your typical hose bib is going to push out water about twice that. So you definitely need that. The next thing moving down the line are the swivel adapters, and that is basically what will screw onto these pressure regulators. And the hose then, this 1/2 inch tubing, just pushes up in there and it hangs onto it. So that part's really easy to install. That brings us to our 1/2 inch hose. And the 1/2 inch hose basically takes the water from the bib to wherever you need it. So now right here, mine hits a hard 90-degree angle. And so I've got 2 90-degree elbows on there, and everything is just kind of pressure fit. You just shove the hose in there and it hangs onto it and creates a watertight seal. So we take that hard right or left turn, head right on down here. Now this is where I'm going to go from one station to the next. This hose actually goes to the 2 raised beds and the apple trees and the herb garden. And this hose here goes out to the 3 raised beds and then the in-ground garden where I have tomatoes and corn and sunflowers right now. So the next size hose is going to be your 1/4 inch. And that is basically taking from the 1/2 inch line wherever you need it to go. And that'll be a little more clear in just a minute. But right here, so I'm using it to go up into my containers. And then that 1/2 inch line, or 1/4 inch line, hooks on to this 1/4 inch line, which has drip emitters already built in. If I can get it to focus. So they're already built in, and this one just happens to be every 6 inches. But the black 1/4 inch tubing does not have holes in it. It's just getting kind of where you need it to go, like an extension cord. And then once I'm into where I need it, then I added in the drip line that actually has the drip emitters built in. Now these are hooked together with barbs, and it's basically a little pointy piece that attaches these two. And again, it's the same thing. It's pressure fit, so you just shove it on there, creates a watertight seal. And then once you get to the end of the line, you use what's called a goof plug. And again, just shoves right in there, finishes off the end of that 1/4 inch tube. So now I've got this where it goes, it gets buried underneath the lawn, the 1/2 inch tube. We go all the way out here, and then we take another hard left turn, and we go into the raised beds. Let me get around the other side so you can see that a little bit better. So I've basically got the 1/2 inch tubing running along the concrete slab all the way down. And then when I get to the raised beds, I have a T connector, and that basically takes this 1/2 inch tubing and lets this break off from that, another 1/2 inch tube that comes up, and I actually have a valve so that I can control the flow of water into this raised bed. And then I go right through the wood with an elbow here, and it comes out inside. And I basically just run that across the one end of this raised bed. And then out from that, you use these barbs again. You just puncture right through this 1/2 inch tube, put the barb in, and then you hook the brown tubing right onto that barb. And then that barb, or that brown tubing again, has the holes, the drip holes, every 6 inches. And you can get drip holes at 6, 9, and 12 inches spacing. I figured for me, I grow pretty intensely in this raised bed, so the closer the holes were, the better. And then these lines just run the full length of the bed. And it actually helps me space out my plants because I can just know that the holes are every 6 inches. And I know, I just plant right next to a hole and know that it's going to get watered. So at the very end of the line, I've got a goof plug, just like I did in the container. And that finishes off the 1/4 inch tubing. But then over here, where I have the end of the 1/2 inch tubing,
have what's called a figure 8 clamp. And basically it just slides on. You bend the hose, slide the figure 8 clamp on, and it ends that line. So all 3 beds are the same. And now the in-ground, if you look down that way, this is the same 1/2 inch that feeds the beds. You can see the lines going up into the raised beds. Here's one right here. But then off of that, I've got this bed over here to the left that's in ground. And I just took the barbs, punctured into the 1/2 inch tubing, and then ran that 1/4 inch tubing across all the way down for every row. And that waters the in-ground bed as well.
So I hope this came across looking as easy as it really was to install. Like I said, it only took me about 3 hours for 5 raised beds, several containers, and in the ground. So it was way less intimidating than I originally thought, and I highly recommend that you do this yourself if you have a lot of time and energy and money spent on watering your vegetable garden. And don't even worry about getting something wrong, because if you make a mistake, that's what goof plugs are for. And it's really easy and forgiving, the entire system. So don't even worry about that. This is working so well. My next goal is to actually install drip throughout the property, especially in the tropicals, so I don't have to worry about all of those hours spent every single summer watering that also. So I hope you guys got something out of this. If you did, give me a thumbs up. And if you have any questions about this, definitely leave them down below in the comments, and I will try to answer all of them. See you guys next time.